yes, that is us. That is vulnerability. And so I already have a list of questions that I want to guide this conversation. And the first is, since this is titled, Blacknificent, Black, Queer, and Okie, what does it mean to you to be Black, queer, and Okie? Let's just start there. What does that mean?
It means to be a mix of all things America. That's what Oklahoma is. We are Black, white, Native, red, everything all mixed together. And I think that is something that Oklahoma is going to champion. That is something that's going to grow us all. And I just can't believe that you have started this, and thank you for starting this, and thank you all for attending this, because we have to put our, along with everyone else's voices out there, because we need to be heard and we need to be the change we want to see.
Yeah.
Boom.
Oh, mic drop.
Go. Here.
I have a quiet voice, so I have to use a microphone. Otherwise, you won't be able to hear me. But to me, I think it's almost like being a chameleon. Almost, you have to be so good at navigating so many different areas. And if you aren't able to do that, then you miss out on things. Because there's people expect you to be, if say, this is a generalization, say you're in the Black community, they expect you to be Black and not queer. You're in the queer community, they expect you to be queer and not Black. Or if you're queer and they want you to be Black, it's a certain kind of Black, you know what I mean? And so
Or a certain kind of queer.
Exactly.
Stereotype.
Yeah, and so I think it's like being a chameleon, being able to adapt anywhere, but also because you're raised in Oklahoma and you also these people and you love these people, it also comes with like a level of learning how to be graceful when other people falter.
Graceful.
Amen.
And I will add that it also requires you to be very firm in who you are. Oklahoma has some very negative feeling towards being queer and being Black, and I feel like it's our job, right, to stand very firm in who we are, so that Oklahoma can learn to get themselves together. In the nicest way.
Well, and it's all of that. It is all of that together. The voices of naysayers and whatever negative respect they are naysaying they have to be heard too. We can't discount their rhetoric or voice, because the word, the print is powerful. It can be used to change minds, raise cities, all of the above. And I think, I would love to see this turn into something that brings voices, not just our own, but I would love to see voices of people with completely different viewpoints. And I would like the community to hear that discussion. And that's why it's so powerful. You've planted the seed right here. Keep it growing, and whatever kind of water you need, we will truck it in. And make it happen. We might be here at the Dust Bowl Center, but seriously, this is the kind of water that Oklahoma needs right here. Seriously.
I feel like it's like a power of listening and understanding and finding humanity between all of us.
I think this is the first step, because our voices have been silenced for so long, specifically in this state, to where it's we are always, we, Black, queer, etc., we're always the ones that have to start it, even though the oppression was imposed upon us. And sometimes it gets tiring, and for me it has been that I had to stand firm in who I am, because if I didn't, and if I don't, I would not be here right now.
Oh, yeah.
I would not be able to say, okay, Lex, this is your job, this is why you're here, this is your purpose. You have to get this ball rolling. You have to get this train flying, because it needs to be done. And then I think the next step is
Right. I'm so happy to have Lincoln here because he is so positive
Yes.
all the time.
Yes.
We also have the same designer.
Yes. So y'all know I'm gonna keep it real because I feel like we have to get to that spot, to that space, to where if we open ourselves to be vulnerable and we share our experiences with you, even the negative ones, that's where, you know, people are going to start thinking, wow, I'm hurting this person. And so earlier this week, I posted something on Facebook about a family member, you know, calling me out for putting my hands on my hips. And I was like 7 or 8 years old when this happened. And I didn't know what gay meant. I didn't know what queer meant. I didn't even know I was a black kid. I was just a kid that put his hands on his waist because he was tired from playing outside. And, you know, it was at that point where I experienced like my first trauma of, you know, someone who looked like me, who I believe was, you know, there to protect me and nurture me and feed me and, you know, pray for me, you know, that hurt me. And I didn't even know how to take it. And those types of experiences, they happened often. They still happen today. So being, you know, black and gay in Oklahoma, for me, when you build community around you, it's awesome, you know. But for those kids that for those young people that haven't had the chance, or adults, you know, they are isolated. They're going to church, they're being told that they're going to hell. Mama is, you know, peeling some beans or something like that, and she's like, look, I done told you, you know, about how you dress, or them jeans are being tight, you know, or you're too proper, you know, and then there's just a lot. Crisscrossing in different settings is easy for some of us, but it's not easy for all of us.
I think that's generally true for every person on the queer spectrum. You know, there's no way that you can move forward in life without encountering some friction from what society in America has become, you know, and what we champion. You know, America is pop culture. We are the society that goes in and absorbs everything, but doing so has also brought us a lot of bias too, from all different places, you know, and religious bias is one of the most painful, I would say, because then they're using your belief and spirit in putting you down and saying what you believe and what your spirit holds.
Let's touch upon the friction of Christianity and religion, and how that has really
I would love to speak on that. I would love to speak on that, just because I grew up in the church. You know, I was at the church. My grandma, she was an usher, so I was there, and I would have to go to Sunday, so I was there every Wednesday, every Sunday, and a lot of times I was there every Saturday for whatever program they had going on. And so my great-grandmother, she had 14 children. At least 5 of her sons were pastors, right? And then the other, you know, a lot of my aunts were pastors' wives, you know, and so my whole family is very religious.
It's a way of life.
It is.
In Oklahoma.
And I thought that was life, honestly, because I grew up here in Tulsa, and I thought, well, this is just how everything is. This is and so when I realized that, you know, I'm not fitting into like this whole story of what a proper, because I'm transgender, and so I was assigned female at birth, so I'm not fitting into this perfect, like this vision of what a little girl is supposed to be, right? And so just being in there and having to hear my uncle say not everybody goes to heaven, you know, hearing things, I remember that's something that I think about all the time. And they were talking about somebody who was being more affirming in their church. And I remember we were at Thanksgiving or something, and at this point, you know, obviously I'm queer, right? Like, I didn't have to tell anybody, you know, they just know me my whole life, everybody, but, you know, my uncle, he's just right there, and he says, not everybody goes to heaven, you know? And no one in my family challenged him, you know, it was almost like it was up to me to do that in that moment, and that can be very hard when your family's whole foundation is built around the church and God and sort of this patriarchal like way of looking at things. It can be very hard to stand up for yourself, because you're not only risking losing, you know, your family, you're risking losing your family, your church, your friends, you know,
Your support system.
Your support system, right? And so it's like, I was a shy kid. I'm still shy, you know. And so just like being in that moment of, am I really? Do I have this in me to do this at the moment? And I didn't, you know. And it's, you know, it's something that I had to like grow into and learn into. And it's still something I'm constantly doing every day.
Frankly, you shouldn't have to. You shouldn't have to do that. You know, and I really, that speaks to the story that is told over and over and over again across the Midwest, across every area of the United States. You know, queer culture, you know, is growing and it is receiving black backlash. And even from when I was a child here in Tulsa, you know, in Oklahoma, being gay was criminalized. You know, they were not playing around. Like, this is not, you're not allowed to be this, you're not allowed to do this, you're not allowed to talk about this, you're not allowed to look at this person. I mean, all of that is ingrained in the place where we are. But I think that, you know, those experiences, like what you said, have to be shared now in this way because we are in such a transformative time, and that story is universal, you know, and the queer story is universal, you know, and that is what we have to keep sharing because yes, speak to bias. We were talking earlier, speak to bias, speak to the uncle having bias and not saying that he could go to heaven. Go. I mean, we had a whole conversation before we got up here. We should have had a pre-recording.
What would you say?
Well, what I say to him now? Well, at this moment, I would say, no, you're wrong. I don't believe that you understand what God is or who God is. You don't have the only idea of what or who or whatever, you know, our existence is. My worth isn't defined by this comment that you made. But when you made that comment, I was probably, 14, 15? It was hard, you know?
It goes to the core.
Yeah.
It replays in your mind over and over.
Yes.
And then when it's something you're living, that self-rejection starts to come in, and you're just like trying to combat that self-rejection, learn to love yourself, but then also present yourself in all these different ways, so you're not constantly receiving more input, more programming.
Oh yeah.
But it still happens, and it's just a constant fight of survival.
Yeah, and young people know this. Black culture and pop culture and queer culture is American culture, and that's what everybody loves. If you look out at the landscape, you know, traditionally the world has loved queer black culture. They just didn't know it. You know, it was always there, making people look fabulous. You know, whatever era it was there. Now, whether or not it was accepted, you know, as in, you know, Grecian times, but even then, that was not, there's so many directions that we could go with that conversation. That is so brave to share. Yes.
I actually, okay, so I'm starting to get this new thought, you know, just all of these experiences seems to be rooted in something that is very dear to me. And it's basically your experiences with hypermasculinity, but ultimately the rejection of femininity and how that impacted you and your self-identity of blackness, because it's very prevalent in the black community specifically.
You play basketball?
No.
You run track?
No.
Yes, but like I know for me, it's been interesting. I've always been a tomboy. So you would, right? That word, a tomboy. And that was accepted. It was okay. I played sports. I was active. It was cute because I was still getting presented as a little girl.
As long as I did play basketball.
Exactly. Exactly. So then it becomes like, okay, this extends beyond a tomboy phase, beyond sports. This is ingrained in me. I have a lot of masculine energy that I want to portray. But then, watching all the men in my family, it was just so violent. Whether it was just how they spoke about women, how they treated women, how they treated self, really. It was a lack of self-love. And I internalized all that, like, oh, women are disposable. Oh, I don't have to be kind to women. But then it's like, I'm a woman. So I stopped being kind to self. I rejected that femininity, and I grabbed onto all of this hyper-masculine things so I could be accepted, so I could see this macho. So then I'm like, yeah, it was good, you know. Everybody gravitated towards me then. And it's like, oh, so the black community loves it. we thrive off of it. And now going back to that, self-love, it's lacked. And now that I'm becoming more feminine and I'm embracing it, it confuses people.
That's still the residue of our incarceration and bondage and being told that, oh, you can be an athlete, but that's about it. You know, or you can be, you know, super strong, wonderful, and we'll hold up these great examples, but we'll hide the rest of those people from history to you. And you know, to me, Black culture is so rich with all kinds of feminine and masculine mixed together. And what we have forgotten is the power in that, and we have been told by oppressive whatever that you're only allowed to be this way. You know, we need to stop asking for permission and get out the box. You know, I find myself all the time. I had a great mentor turn to me the other day, not just say to me, when are you going to stop asking for permission? Just do, you know? And of course that's easier said than done, you know, especially if you're in the middle of a, you know, rural existence and your only outlet is your cell phone under your covers at night. But amen, there's RuPaul Drag Race out there and YouTube now, you know? So the wave is coming. The wave is coming. But the walking of that line between masculine and feminine, I think, is something that we have been, you know, holding onto, but it's not going to be our saving grace. Like, it's not going to be what saves people of color, you know, from ourselves or others. We have to embrace all, you know, all.
So, Denita, since you are a cisgender queer woman, how has your queerness been received just been received? It can be in relation to the masculine femininity thing or anything.
I don't think that's so I'm like very straight presenting, right? So people assume that I am straight. And I remember being a kid, okay, I'm sitting in my grandma's house. My grandma lives in a really small town in Georgia. And she was like reading the Bible. She read like this verse, the one that everybody talks about that says like men and women, or men and men should not like be together and women should not be together. And I remember saying like, read that again? Because like immediately as a kid I was like, oh shit, like she's not religion. But I was like, I don't know. I'm not fitting into this box, right? Like I am not what I'm supposed to be. Okay, fast forward, I'm like trying to navigate my life, trying to figure it out. And in high school, someone that I went to church with decided to post on the internet that I had a girlfriend. Okay.
Scandal.
What? And I was like, okay. And then at that point I was like kind of feeling good. I was like, yeah. Like I felt okay about it. Then I get all these messages from people in that church community that I thought I had a really great relationship with. And I'll never forget this one woman, I still like her, but she says to me, she says, do you like girls? And I was like, oh. I like, at that point didn't know how to answer her. I knew the answer, but I didn't know how to answer her. And I didn't really say anything. And then she goes, because if so, I'll have to pour holy water on you.
Oh my God.
And I just kind of closed my computer and was like, oh God. And that, I think, contributed to a lot of like, I didn't know how to be, right? Like these people who I had these great relationships with, or I thought had these great relationships with, were like turning against me, it felt like. And it caused a lot of trauma. It caused a lot of like, what do I really think about religion? What do I really think about God? What do I really think about these people who have grown up having such admiration for? What do I think about who I want to be, who I want to present myself as? And so I think there's like levels to this shit. Like I grew up in a space where in that church I did not feel like I was very safe. I went away to college and felt very, very, very safe. I found a group of people that loved me, that I loved, and that I had such a connection to. I moved to Oklahoma. I'm not from here, y'all, but I've been here for 5 years, so like I don't know if I'm an Okie now or what. But I moved to Oklahoma, and there was like varying levels of whether or not I felt safe and accepted and heard. There were spaces where I did, There were spaces where I didn't. There was like times where I found community, there were times where I didn't. So I think that there's that answer. Like I don't know if there's like a clean bow. I don't know if there's like I feel safe.
There's not.
Right?
And
Like
the battle's internal and external too.
The
It's
battle's
not-
internal and external, and
it's
like
not
there's
just-
a ton of like we have to deprogram ourselves from like white supremacy culture and like white straight man culture. And
Everybody does.
everybody does.
I'm constantly checking myself,
it's a
just like, why do I have
constant-
that thought?
Yes, I have this little thing. It's like white supremacy culture, y'all. It's called that, and like it has a list of elements that are derived from white supremacy culture that I have to be like, is this real, or like,
The Matrix.
yeah.
Well, and it's
And you
conscious.
have to check yourself.
Yeah.
Because I have to deprogram myself
Message.
constantly.
And it's conscious
I encourage y'all to.
and unconscious bias, you know, of yourself in there too. Shameless plug, I was really lucky. My parents were of a generation that they sent us to Universalist church. I mean, I went to All Souls as a child. It was my first job when I was 14 in the 2-year-old room. Like, we were really fortunate to grow in that space. Not that they were promoting gay agendas at that time, or not that they are now either. But I feel like, it's something so different. Well, and I used to go to church with my next door neighbors, and they're my second family. And like we would go to church in Sand Springs. And I would say even at a Baptist church in Sand Springs, where I was the only black person, that, I am effeminate. But the question still persists.
Do you play basketball?
I think it's something like that will go on forever, and we just have to, it's like you said, it's all about how you react to it. When you said you closed the computer and took a breath, people are also waiting, I think, for brown people to step into a stereotype. They want you to react in a negative way. Especially black women, I would say that is even more prevalent for you than it is for me. And that's a whole nother panel
Sure
that
is.
should be
Add me on
coming
it.
right up. But I feel like, all of those questions are so valid, and thank you for sharing candidly, because the people need to know.
I know you got some. Give it to us, please.
So, I would say, like Lincoln, I can be honest in letting you know that I was one of the lucky ones. I was lucky. My mom is sitting here in the audience now.
Hey, Mom.
So, it should be the
Right.
norm.
Work.
But, my mom knew I was gay before I knew I was gay.
Right.
She was like, he's gonna be gay. And, when I started getting a little bit older, like I'd say around 13, that's when I started to have, an attraction for men. But because of the culture of Oklahoma, I was a religious kid. I would go to church on a Sunday morning, on a Sunday evening, and then on Wednesday for youth group and go to all of this stuff. I remember being in FCA, Fellowship of Christian Athletes, and doing all of that stuff. And it was fun. I really enjoyed it until I guess people just started, I think Nehemiah might be gay. And then suddenly I felt the walls like caving in around me. But at home I felt safe because my mom and my dad, my stepdad, they were accepting of me. But it was society that was kind of pushing, this perception of, what I'm supposed to be.
And wouldn't you say that it's subtle and, in your face all at the same time? It's like you said as a child, putting your hand on your hip in a way, or, having a swish in your step.
Yeah.
Some sugar in your tank.
Amen. And thank God.
That phrase.
Yeah.
And then it's like, oh, well, if he's got some sugar in his tank, then he's gonna be the last kid that we want to play basketball with. And so imagine if you're like the black kid, right? And you have a whole bunch of other black kids, but you're the last one to get picked all the time not because of your talent, but because of, you know, this assumption or the stigma that you have for being othered, you know. I would say that, and I was really thinking about this when I got these questions, is that when it comes to white supremacy, white people would see another white person demonizing a black person or saying something derogatory or mean to them. And then they're just, you know, the others, they never say anything. They're just kind of like going with it. You know, they're remaining silent. That stuff happens in our community. You know, a black person will say something negative about someone that appears to be, you know, queer, or, you know, is presumed to be queer, and everyone is just compliant.
As a high school,
They don't say anything.
As a high school educator, we would fight the use of the term gay as a derogatory term. And, you know, our SOFA alliance got to the point where they'd be calling bad things straight, you know, and that kind of double thinking forces you, oh, that's so straight. That's so straight. I mean, it looked like, and like that's what they, you know, and it was a powerful thing to see, you know, younger generations doing that, because, you know, my children in high school always knew, they'd all had my husband, who's out there in the audience, as a former educator. You know, they knew and championed who I was, just as I championed who they were. But in their interactions, you know, I did notice the old prevailing society still coming in really subversive ways. It may not be that you overtly make fun of someone, because it's cool now to have a gay best friend, you know, but you may say, or their brother might say, or their sister or auntie may say, oh, that's so gay, you know, and that can be taken in a multitude of ways.
That's got me thinking, you know, society is the structure of which that is holding all of this negative images of self and of queerness and blackness together. So as educators and influencers, how are you, because I'm also an educator, how are you specifically, individually, dismantling these things? Like, what tangible actions are being made?
Well, I definitely must take this first. And I'm assuming that maybe y'all can relate. So I'm black, right? But I'm also gay. And so I've had to go back and forth and say, well, which battle am I gonna fight first today? Am I gonna fight the battle for myself because I'm gay and I'm black? Or am I gonna fight for all black people, even the black people that try to marginalize me and box me and keep opportunities away from me because I'm gay? And so I've had to deal with that. Recently, and I'm just gonna be honest, this was, I was with Jose at, I can't remember this forum, this thing that we were at, but there was this little white girl, she just challenged me. She was like, well, why haven't you been talking about, you know, queer stuff in the Black Wall Street Times? And I'm like, you know what, you're right, I need to be a little bit more louder. And so I can fight both battles. I can simply fight the battle by being who I am without, you know, and so that's what I've been focusing on, is just being me and speaking my truth as a queer black Oklahoman in every way possible.
Yes.
Yeah, I agree with that, right? In my job, I speak to a lot of white people about white supremacy culture, our systemic racism, all that. And I spend a ton of time engaging in that conversation, and then I just straight up drop to them that I'm queer. And it kind of throws people off, because like I said, I'm straight presenting, right? So people like have no idea until I tell them. And then I'm like, yeah, now you got that layer to think about too. Right. But that does something, right?
You dropped the bomb on me.
you have to do your own work to get through that.
That's big.
And necessary. In every situation, it's like you want to, this is the one thing that we've learned from our president, now is the time to speak your mind, and speak your voice, and share your reality, because you never know. There are people out there like you, and they want to hear you. Just look at our president, That is it. Like, you take and make the circumstance your own. You make it beautiful, you make it you, and whatever spectrum you are comfortable in, go. Because from the young people that I've seen who are coming forward now, they don't care. They could care less about these old arguments about race and sexuality, but they need to be cognizant at the same time, and I think that's why we're all here, is of the struggle that it took to get even this far in America. And we are how old? How old is our country? We are young when you look out on the world stage. But I think they need to know about what happened and have a tangible connection to it, because it produced, people like all of us, where we can make it easier, like you said, by being ourselves, make it easier for others to follow in our footsteps.
Exactly. And I was going to say, this is something that's very important to me, because I tell anyone who ever listens to me, the one thing that I want to accomplish in anything that I ever do in this town or wherever I go is to make sure that queer Black youth are able to grow up and feel confident in themselves and feel confident in their abilities and who they are, and not feel like they have to put themselves in a box that doesn't exist. That's all. That's what I care about.
A box of their own making in their own mind.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Because
in the mind that what society is shaped.
Oh, of course.
Exactly. Yes.
Of course.
Exactly.
Let alone.
It was put on them.
I mean,
right?
let
They
alone.
inherited this.
Right. It's how small the world is. Just because a lot of this city sometimes doesn't make space for people who are bigger than it. You know what I mean? And it can be very hard to really expand yourself here. And so I really want to make sure that when anything that I do, especially when I'm working with youth, especially when I'm around Black queer youth, even if I feel like tired or shy, I have to make sure that at that moment I'm there to welcome them in, make them feel happy, make them feel like everything's light, everything's happy, because I feel like that is my responsibility to them in that moment, because they get all the bad stuff all the time. I mean, I want to show them a representation of something good.
Yeah.
I identify with that so deeply. Like, that's really my life's mission, is to be a home for Black queer youth. And if y'all don't know, I teach kindergarten. And of course, in kindergarten, the first question they ask, are you a boy or a girl? Every time, every day, same kid. It could be different kids. And it's like, did we have this conversation 10 minutes ago? Yeah, but and
Their answer might change.
Exactly. It does. And they learn that. My answer changes. And sometimes I tell them, what do you think? Why? Why do you think that? Why do you think I'm a girl? Because you have, I don't know, because you sound like a girl? Okay. So why do you think I'm a boy? Because you wear boy clothes. But does that make me a boy? No. And then they'll ask me, so what are you? I'm like, both, neither, everything. And they look at me like, okay. They're like, oh, you're everything. Right. They see me as, and that goes back to that comfort in self. Like 2 years ago, even last year, I wouldn't have been able to say that. Right. I was confused as to how to answer them. Like, I don't know. Like, I don't fully feel like a girl. I don't fully feel like a boy. I feel fluid. I flow. And seeing how those babies receive me and in turn receive themselves because they see me loving on self has been the driving force, the water to my garden that allows me to keep pushing, to keep fighting the system that doesn't give a damn. Like, man, and it's so hard, but in those moments when you do get that feeling of like, oh, they see me as home, they see me as light,
it's a journey, and it didn't happen like overnight. It takes like the work. And
let's talk about that journey of how are you still, because it's a daily battle, I know. How did you, especially as adolescent, start to overcome all of these programmings? And how are you doing that today? What is your...
So,
Great educators like Nehemiah and all of these people here.
we're a collective, and if we're by ourselves, we die. We can't grow unless we have each other. And so I didn't just get here by myself. I'm just gonna keep it real. There were gay males in my life that were my big brother, or that were my dad at times, saying, don't go over there, you better protect yourself, or you better go to school and do this. You need some money? Are you all right? And I'm thankful for all of those people, all of those brothers in my life that weren't after me because maybe they thought I was cute, right? This lifestyle, it is not about that. It's about, we're just human relationships. That's what it is. And they were there to be friends and, help mold me into, what I am. So today.
That's exactly what you said. The relationships that I've had with other educators who have taught me to be myself, taught me to live outside the box, and then, affirmed me even when I didn't think I could do it myself, and then finding that voice and that strength to move. And I tell people this every day: make this town one that you want to live in. Because please God, make it one that you personally want to live in, because whatever that may be, I think that the growth is going to be good for all of us. And those educators along the way, I would not be the same person without several educators. I mean, we could go down to a Hall of Fame list right now, because I'm sure people remember their names, like even straight people remember their educators. And I think that supporting that and finding more people like us to do more of that is what we need desperately.
Go Avery.
Oh, yeah, did you want to share?
you go ahead.
Okay, cool. I was gonna say, sort of like something you said earlier, I went to college, I'm from Tulsa, so I left Tulsa, I went to Wichita, Kansas, and I played basketball, but
And you were good. Yeah.
But, so I was there, and, everyone else, we made a joke about it, but half of our team were, like, studs, and then, and so I felt that was the first time in my life I'd been around other, because I was still identifying as a woman at that time, other black women who were masculine in such numbers. Like, I had never been in a space like that in my entire life. And so just being there, just like, and we're playing basketball together, so we're family, like we're each other's chosen family, and just being around those people who were just like, who I didn't know, I didn't know what was going on, and they just really took me under the wing, and it was just like, it was really like, it was sort of something I'd been looking for that I didn't even know I was missing, and it just really brought me so much just like confidence in myself, confidence in learning just like how do I want to dress, how do I want to present myself, how do I want to walk, how do I want to, just be in my own skin, and, and I'm going to say this, stud culture is not perfect, right? I think there's a lot of toxic masculinity in that makes sense to go. Yeah, but I still love those people, and they loved me, and so I was able to grow and learn with them, and, that really gave me the foundation to feel good about myself, and just like, keep exploring what that is.
I echo a lot of the things everyone said, right? Like finding like your safe place, like finding your community, finding what makes you feel good about yourself and who you are. And I don't know if you're gonna ask this question, I'm gonna start talking about it. When we talk about like healing from that, right? I went to therapy, still got
Amen, therapy.
But therapy is so helpful. And not just like a therapist that like sits and just be like, yeah, that's rough. Somebody that's change my behavior.
Yes.
Check you.
Yes.
Yes.
Right? Like, I don't need somebody, I mean, sometimes it does feel good to just have somebody that lets you vent, but you need to be pushed. We need to push each other to rid ourselves of this toxic stuff that we hold on to, that we've inherited.
That's a whole nother conversation.
I know,
in
but
Black culture and
Yeah.
mental health,
A
right
whole
there.
conversation.
Then
Yeah.
Black culture, mental health, and queer culture.
Man.
Like,
Yeah, but we're naming it right now.
Yeah.
Therapy,
Yeah.
y'all. It's good.
Essential.
It is essential.
It's crazy
Essential.
because the common thread is the community piece. For me, I have an interesting story. I'm from Oklahoma City, and I actually left home to go to a boarding school at 14. And that was interesting. You know, obviously one reason is because you're a teenager. All these hormones and all these problems arise during these pivotal years. And for me, it was like so many different swords because I was Black, I was queer, I was Okie, and also, you know, the school system here sucks. It's improving slowly-ish. And I was not academically ready for this setting. So I was on academic probation probably my whole first year.
Stop funny.
Like failing classes, like I was just not ready for it. But you know, I was doing that, I was failing, I was in this affluent white space as this token hood Black girl who was masculine and was like, oh, you're so ghetto, like, you're so cool, like, I want to be your friend. It's like, battling that, but then also immensely missing my family, but not naming that to them because I felt a responsibility to survive this, because I wanted it, I wanted to leave. I convinced them that I could do it. So I had all these things playing in my head, like, you have to be strong, you can't cry, you can't show them you're weak, you can't show them you're struggling. Just go out there and do it. And so I just did it. But in that doing, I hurt a lot of people that were supposed to be my friends that I loved in this new community. So then that was just so much, and I felt so detached from any type of community. So I've learned, for better or worse, how to thrive alone, how to overcome alone. But now that I'm an adult, I found a solid community that poured into me consistently. And the shift, now knowing that I'd never ever have to carry this weight alone again, that like moves me so much, because it was the hardest journey, especially as a 14, 15, 16-year-old, and trying to navigate liking women, and of course sex, like, no parents are there, like, you know, like, what do you expect?
The best part about private school.
The best part, let's be real, right? Real talk, right? Like, and now like, how do I show up in this new space? I don't know, like, then all this masculine stuff start coming out, and it's like, okay, shit, now I gotta, man.
I speak to that story too. I went to Emerson, I went to Lee, and then I went to Holland Hall.
Oh, yeah.
And I was one of 3 Black people at Holland Hall in my class. And, you know, Holland Hall is an amazing, amazing place. And I would not have survived the pitfalls that you speak of if it weren't for the arts that I was exposed to at that time. You know, at Lee, my teachers used to let me out of class to go paint the scenery and the backdrops for the theater in fourth and fifth grade. So like I knew that I was moving that direction, and then when I went to Holland Hall, you know, those pitfalls are real. And I would say, even speaking from an urban educator now, I would say that there are people trapped in the cycle of poverty who feel the same way about everyday culture. They feel like they can't look out at everyday culture without, and these are even little kids that I have now who speak to it, and I'm like, what did you say? Like, you can't go over there and do that because what? Like, and a lot of it is perceived bias along with group implicit bias, you know, or whatever happens in that moment. And I think that, you know, it's changing. You know, this is so proof of all of that. And when you say education was abysmal in Oklahoma, you know, I cringe as an educator. I know it was, and I know that it is, and I know that we still fail a lot of students, and that's why I became an educator in the first place. That's why I moved back here from New York in 2006, and I was like, I'm gonna do this because I made it. You know, I was cast my first 6 months in Manhattan. I was at Harvey Firestein's theater. I was in Once on This Island in Brooklyn, and I was living my life doing Donnie Deutsch during the day and being my executive assistant and performing at night, and it was gorgeous. And I loved it. But I also knew that there were so many kids like me who had maybe more talent than I did, maybe more drive than I did, but they didn't know about it. And that's why I was like, we have to do this in Oklahoma now. That's why I'm so grateful Oklahoma's attracting people, you know, from everywhere now, and that they're investing in here because the work needs to be done. Like it's been needed to be done, you know, for some time. And I think that if anyone, and this is a plug for Oklahoma PTA, if anyone is interested about getting involved in education, okpta.org. We will plug you into whatever form of advocacy you see fit. And if you want to become an educator, if you think that you even want to entertain that idea, go to some of these people.
Yes.
You know, go to them and speak to them. Their door is open. Our door is open, and we want you. We want you to literally be the educators of the future. I'm serious. We want them out there because right now, you know, and we're really grateful. You know, it wasn't long ago that TPS adopted a non-discrimination policy, and we're very lucky as a public entity to have that in the great state of Oklahoma. And you know, I champion those visionary leaders who took that time to put that in place. But now the step is that we have to find more people like us who are inclusive to bring them forward in education to see the change that we know that we want to see, because your private school experience was probably an incredible education. You know, my private school experience was an incredible education for those 3 years before I went back to public school. You know, but every child should have that experience without the bias, you know, without the sports complex or the ghetto glorification or, oh, you're the token black, you know, let me be your best friend because you're cool, you know. And we forget that. We forget that we are cool. Don't forget
We are cool.
Don't forget it. You know, all people have something to contribute, and especially, you know, queer people of color. Don't forget the magic that you have in your everyday voice, you know, and share that.
I was just gonna add on to that makes me think of, because I was thinking about, you know, we always think about the civil rights movement and things like that, but even before the civil rights movement, there's always been queer people working in those spaces who get pushed to the back for the greater cause or whatever in that moment.
Or take a back seat because they're like, oh, well.
Exactly. And it's just, I think that's just stop. Like, I don't know, because I think we obviously know what we're talking about. We have a perspective that many other people don't have that allows us to see into, you know, the root of some of these problems that other people, because of their privileges in other spaces, they're not able to identify. We can do that, and I don't know, I just...
And bridge that gap.
And bridge that gap, yeah.
In the dialogue with them, yeah.
Exactly, and I just think that, you know, that's a, I use the word tradition, but I think that's a tradition that should stop, you know, and I think it's, you know, the greater cause is also us too, you know.
Yeah.
You know, I agree with you 100%, but I will say, I think that black people back then, like during the 60s and, you know, earlier before that, they were just trying to, you know, just be counted as a human being. And so I think that brothers like Bayard Rustin, I think that he saw the bigger picture, but he was like, you know what, today I'm gonna have to be black and not gay, because the agenda is to make sure that we as a people can get to this point. And so once they get to that point, I think he realized, okay, now that we've got to point B, now we can go to point C, and I can have my white brothers and, my sisters, help push us to the next point. And
They
so,
paved the way. Right
They
now
did.
is the time. We are at point C.
Right.
Hit the pedal to the metal.
And-
Press go.
Yeah, and I'm and I honor him. I'm thankful for, his struggle. I hate that he had to be in a box, but I think that he had the understanding of society back in that day. That those are the decisions that he's made. Like I was recently talking to one of the pastors because I go to All Souls, and so he had said to me that Dr. Martin Luther King's wife, Coretta Scott King, used to attend a Universalist church like All Souls, and that Dr. King and her both went to a Unitarian church until they moved back to the South. They said if we're going to move society forward and fight for rights and all of that, we can't be black people going to a Unitarian church. It's not gonna, the black folks aren't gonna listen to us. And so that's the reason why they went and, adopted the Baptist doctrine. And so that's how they knew that they had to get into a box in order to, let everybody out of the box. And so
I
I'm thankful for
totally
that.
agree with that sentiment, and we're here in the box in Oklahoma, and it's time,
Yeah.
And Oklahoma has so much to give in that way. We have so many, just from the entertainment perspective, there are so many famous, incredible people who came from this state, and we have to champion that light for all people now.
For sure. Well, we have like time for about one more question, so I'm going to just open it up for any of us, obviously, to share something that would elicit hope in terms of moving forward, since we are talking about advancing and evolving. It could be advice, it could be a story, anything that you feel would be of value to anyone and everyone listening.
If the door is locked, go through the window. If the window is locked, go around back. If around back is locked, go into the basement. And if the basement is locked, get out your dynamite and do what you have to do. Because you can find the right people to open the doors that you want. It's just about finding those people and not being afraid. Not being afraid of failure. That is something that has been ingrained in people to control class warfare, which is a whole nother discussion panel. Don't be afraid to reach for inclusive help. The future is inclusive. Those people who don't believe that, they will be left behind. They will be left behind.
I was just going to say this is a hopeful story, I think, but this is when I was working with the Gay Straight Alliances in different high schools, and it was Memorial High School, and their Gay Straight Alliances mostly it's brown and black children, and it's a big club, and they're all together, and they were all talking about I don't know, some new music. I don't really know what it was because I'm getting old, but they were talking about it. It was just like queer artists, these queer kids talking about these queer black musicians, and just like sharing music, laughing and talking, just like having fun. And because we made a space for that in a school that doesn't have as many resources as other schools does, right? We made a space for them there that they can feel whole and like themselves, and they don't have to hide. I think that's progress. Like, that's beautiful to me. And I remember just like watching them and just laughing with them and just being like, yes, these kids, these youth are gonna get older, and they're gonna graduate. They're gonna do whatever they are gonna do in life. But this part right here, they're gonna take this joy that they've made here. They're gonna take that with them. And I think that's amazing. So yeah.
I would say that people like Jose and people like Hugh, you guys give me hope. Because I remember, it was a few weeks ago, Jose and Avery and myself were trying to put together an event. We're like, okay, well, we need to do something because no one else is doing something. And for for me, I was just trying to make sure Black kids were getting educated and run the Black Wall Street Times, and wasn't really focused on, that other part of myself that needed a safe space. And so, for you and for, the individuals that put this together, thank you for allowing me to just exist and move in my purpose. And I'm thankful to the universe, for planting that seed in you so we can continue to move in our purpose and come here and be ourselves today. So that gives me hope.
I'm gonna add on, I guess, to what all of you said, this space and the people who showed up or are watching online. I don't know how this is working. It's also a challenge, right? What will you do next after you learn this information and after we've had this discussion? What's our next steps as a community? What's our next step as an individual to push forward? I think holding this space and showing up to this space gives me hope.
Yeah.
We there's power in this conversation, right?
I mean, we are all powerful,
Right?
and that leads me to my closing, I guess. We all deserve healing. We all deserve to heal, and in that healing, it is okay to face the pieces of us that are not beautiful, the pieces that have been imposed upon us. It is not who we are. It is what this matrix, this system, has told us we are. We are beyond any of that, as you can see. And we all will always have work to do, but the work is being done. All of these beautiful panelists, Q, all of you, and this space, like everyone said, is my hope. And I just appreciate all of y'all just being so dope, for being so great.
Shout out to Woody Guthrie Center for being so dope. Because they are pushing it forward, y'all. This is exactly the mission of what his music was about. And I don't know his personal beliefs on Black, gay, queer people. But I would hope and I think that, that message and that voice is, that's it.
Even if not, it's you gotta be now, bro. We're here.
Well, that's the transition power of music, it can go through any generation and be applied to so many things, and this is awesome. Yeah. Let's do it again. Let's take it on the road.
I know. I could do this more.
So, in our amazing closing, we have, I know you already know, the legendary Tizzi. She gonna spit some things and just send us off with, vibes. That is her.
Got you.
Oh, yeah. A picture?
Yeah, we can. Yeah. Yeah.
Go.
It might be off. I turned it off.
Hello. Okay. Hello. I go by the name of Tizzi, T-I-Z-Z-I, know why. I'm an artist in Tulsa, Oklahoma. I'm a multi-hyphenate artist, so not only am I a singer, a rapper, a poet, a model, and an actor, but I'm gonna spit this little piece. It's called Network, aka Your Net Worth. This piece I spit, it will be on TV One, June 19th. Yeah, just search for it. Here it goes.
Water.
Sorry, y'all.
Don't apologize for getting hydrated.
Say good H2O. I got the key, you can't hold me. My destiny is unfolding. One thing I know is I gotta stay focused. Ooh, listen, I'm cold like that. Here's the double shot of tea, baby, cause I'm bold like that. I'm in too deep, expose the facts. Yeah. History repeats, but we ain't going back. No, we ain't going back. Check it. They want to own us, but they can't control us. Act like they know us, but they really owe us. We looking forward, they looking over shoulders. Like we don't know they armed and ready to drop bombs. But they keep on forgetting we're survivors, still giving thanks when things get messy. Breaking barriers, building up hope. Breaking barriers, building up hope like long as God let me. Had to lighten up my pockets cause we ball too heavy. We stood paying that time, now they working for us. So we keep shining the sign in case they searching for us. No more hurrying up, now you know what's up. I'm Dickie rolling, taking the stairs, elevators ain't for us. So, baby boy, what's the network? I'm trying to stack it up and flip it, but they trying to take my network. But what they did wasn't right. But what they left found a light, a reason to fight, a reason to sing, a reason to smile, a reason to style, a reason to, yeah, money circulating now. Yeah, I said we making the world go round. We making the world go round. We making the world go round. Tizzi, yeah, we lit. So this song was initially for like our ancestors and for us to rebuild something new. It's like, you know, we steady worrying about what our reparations are, but let's stop worrying and rebuild something new because that's what it's all about, a new trends. And let's be that trends. And I know that we are all stars. It's just a matter if we harness that star within ourselves. You know what I'm saying? So, baby boy, what's the network? I'm trying to stack it up and flip it, but they trying to take my network. But what they did wasn't right, but what they left found a light, a reason to fight, a reason to sing, a reason why we here right now. So thank you guys. My name is Tizzi, Tizzi. Know why.
A selfie with the audience? Yes. Oh, all right. So before we take the selfie with the audience, you know.
Watch that water.
Okay. I just wanted to. We all wanted to open up, you know, the stage and everything to the audience. Do you all have any questions? Hey, what's up?
Thank you all, first of all. I am a former TPS educator myself. Tizzi, aka T. Andrea, was one of my babies. I love her. So when I was teaching, I went through a safe space allyship training.
Say that again?
When I was teaching middle school on the north side of Tulsa, I went to a safe space allyship training as a hetero woman and came back excited to my administration at the time and said, how can I post that my room is a safe space? Like that's kind of known, but how do I make this known and how do we help our other colleagues get on board? And I was told, yeah, no, the parents aren't ready for that. We're not ready for that. The problem that I have in schools, and I just had another exchange with a young gay black woman who's a high schooler in North Tulsa, is that educators are perpetuating the trauma. It's not even that they are observing it, right, and unsure what to do, man, but they're perpetuating it. And as you can see, it angers me. It upsets me when we are in schools, some of us with no business being there, doing more damage to children that are coming to us for safety. And I want to know, and I'll direct this to you. Sorry, I'm so bad at names because I really am old, and baby, you are not old next to you. I am old. The gray hairs are here, so names slip me.
Are you talking to me or Avery?
To you. Both of you. Okay, both of you. Yeah, old comments for you. This question is for you. What are we doing in TPS to train our educators as to how to be allies boldly, to set up affinity spaces in North Tulsa primarily, to offer safety for our kids? How are we holding these people accountable? These people being educators, administrators, right? This needs to be called out because they are doing further damage. And I told this young woman, hey, if you're bold and strong, start an affinity group. I work for City Year, which is present in some of these schools. Ask City Year to help you with affinity groups because they facilitate some of those in some of our schools. But we have to see this, name it, challenge it, train so that we can shift it.
Yes.
That's a long diatribe.
lot of good people, I mean, me, right, give me grace, but hold TPS accountable, right? I will give you a plethora of people that you need to contact to help.
I'll give you an answer.
I was like,
There's an organization called Safe Team. It's a national organization that's formed by teachers, and those teachers need to have Safe Team in their school. Their job is to provide harbor or spaces for students, and I would urge you with City Year to put your voice forward, because I know the district is, I'll answer for you in that we were having a conversation previously, and she was telling me about a new school that she's going to be going into this fall for the exact training that you spoke of, and I was so grateful and glad to hear that she was moving forward in that space. But what she needs to be allowed to do is to have voices like yours in the community saying, administration, educators, people in education, please listen and engage with the learning that is trying to come your way. Don't automatically say, this is another professional development. I think that that's a great start, and as a long-term employee for the district, I am grateful to see that they are moving that forward. But it is slow, like you said, because there are so many challenges.
So are the challenges like the teachers themselves aren't
All
ready?
of the above, just like education,
like
it's all of the above. It's
yeah,
the parents,
it's
the
like
teachers, the kids, like it's the
society.
stakeholders in education that really have to be brought together
Yeah.
to have that growth. And it's not just the teachers having that one component, it's bringing all those families to that school to have those discussions together. That's the hard part.
Yeah, can I give an example really fast? Because I know exactly what you're talking about. That's why I'm over here in my seat.
Yeah.
Like, we need to be here. And so here is, there was a student in another class, and this was at a charter school. And I imagine that it has happened in TPS tons of times. It's this kid, and he was a little feminine. He was a feminine kid, a black boy. The teacher is a black male teacher. And he's like, oh, don't be soft. Oh, you need to, and start, you need to be tough. So-and-so, be tough. You're playing basketball. And that is so damaging to that baby.
Right.
For the simple fact that that is not who God created that child to be. And so even the teacher themselves is molding. It kind of goes back to the same situation where, I put my hands on my hips, and then, my family member was like, get your hands off your hips like a girl.
Yeah.
And there's nobody to call that teacher out and say, this is damaging to the child. I think that is where you're
There is now.
It's difficult because
She's
like
right
there
here.
is, well, I try my best, but it's difficult because like there's a mindset shift that we have to help people through, right? Like we can't policy our way out of the systemic problem, and that's where it becomes so difficult to solve because we can't policy our way out of a mindset, out of a systemic issue.
Tizzi has something to add to this. Go ahead.
Oh,
So, oh,
Yeah.
Actually,
so I definitely understand what you mean, Ms. Bent. So for a long time growing up, I raised 5 kids with my grandmother. Each of them have mental illness. The older one has like aggressive behavior. So like me, I always said I wanted to start my own like nonprofit or for children, kids who are silenced and don't have a voice, and I'm currently, it's called Chaotic Bliss. That's my album, that's my life, that's my brand, so I'm pushing that forward. I'm working with people, I'm trying to get sponsors for it. And not only that, it's like all they do is either throw you in a system or just drown you with pills and like you're dying on the inside, And I wanna create that safe haven for children because I know how it feels. Because I was the one, getting called a lot of stuff too, and I have like some stuff going on with me too that we all do. So I feel like if we can change our mindsets, that's what it all starts with. Like I've been doing neuroplasticity, metaphysics for a long time. You just have to change the negative space within the minds. Like I'm starting from like adults to babies to children. Right now, I'm in the process of doing that, and like let's go. I think us like as a team, instead of just one, let's build together so we can have our generation come up strong-minded, like not weak. We need that in our community. So that's one thing I want to start, and it'll be called Chaotic Bliss. So.
All right, any more questions?
Can I just jump in real fast? So I called that teacher out, and I sat him down. I said, "Look, you're harming this kid. You don't know what this kid. I mean, would you do that to me? He already knew that I was gay. So I'm like, would you tell me to be tough and do this? And and so we just need to call folks out. I'm so happy that you said something because I'm gonna write something about that. Yeah, just so the conversation can get started.
Started. You said you had a question?
Yeah, I'm curious if you guys, I don't know, whoever wants to answer this, if there was like a moment where you realized that you had to be yourself in order to move forward, and I mean, in not like a specific situation, I mean like all the time. I mean, as much as you could be with a safe.
So I'm so happy that you said that.
Because like I haven't gotten there, right, and I don't understand how to make that step. So
You navigate it every day.
Yeah.
So as an educator, I have parent meetings, right? The parents come in. My parents are from North Tulsa. They go to church, they go to Wednesday Bible study, and the hyper masculinity, that is not even a term that they even know, but they're perpetuating it all the time. And so sometimes I'm gonna keep it real with everybody in this room, because I care about those babies. I have to step back into the box. I'm just keeping it real, because I'm like, if I decide to just be out, I can't reach this kid right now. Because the parent is like, well, I'm snatching my kid out of class because Mr. Frank is gay. But they know Mr. Frank is going to produce some results, So it's like, maybe I need to just, we'll see,
And it's
But
about,
I'm just being honest, that's kind of where I'm at right now.
but the other half of your parents' story, Nehemiah, even with you, is that the great educational goals that you're able to achieve with those children transforms minds instantly. And it may just be one that you have to deal with that every semester or month or whenever.
And it's not with every parent.
But you do that, your work as yourself is what is changing that perception. And I think everybody has to fight that battle every day. You have to navigate every situation, and you have to decide for yourself what battles to fight.
I think for me, as I remember when I was growing up, oh my gosh, like trying to express who I am to my family, it was like, okay, shut up. You have to be, so I kind of gravitated into a box until I realized, honestly, people look to me as an inspirational person, but affirmations really help. Like, just walking down the street, just say, I own this motherfucker. Like, you know what I'm saying? Constantly, if you feed yourself with affirmations, and once you, continue to believe that ego of self will just disappear.
And feeding others. It's feeding others that happens.
You gotta tend to self first. I'm all that's my thing. Like, I had to learn to be selfish. I was selfish. I was like, if I have to protect me. And in protecting me, I learned to love all of me. So then I could pour into other people. And for me, that moment was probably it was when I realized I am utterly miserable. I am miserable because I am not living in my truth. And I isolated myself so I can get to know who I was without the influence of society. And it was ugly, y'all. It was ugly. But I had to accept that so I could move forward. And I think that is necessary for any type of growth, is to say, I have ugly parts of me, but I am beautiful. And now I'm like, I don't care. You getting all of me. Right. You are getting it. And you're going to be confused, but you're going to love it. Right. and I'm gonna be this light, and you're gonna accept it.
Because I'm tired of rejecting
I'm tired of rejecting self. Like, this world's gonna catch up one way or another.
Sorry. Like I said, I have to use my phone. I got a quiet voice. But no, I relate to that quite a bit, just because like I said, I'm transgender, but for a long time in my life, I identified as a lesbian, as a queer woman, and I remember as people do when they're young and they find something. I remember watching this video about some skinny white person who was genderqueer, right? And I remember like my stomach was like, I feel like that's something to me, but also I was like, it's this skinny white queer woman, so that can't be me, right? And I remember thinking in my life, I might feel this way, and yeah, I might want to live my life this way, but I have to understand I have to make those sacrifices where I can't do that, because that's not how my life is going to work out, because I don't have that opportunity. Because I'm here, this is my family, this is where I'm at, this is where I go to school, this is what I do. If I did all this, I'm going to lose all this, so it's just not going to happen for me. I can't do that. And I remember looking into my past and thinking of people who had lived like that before and thinking like, oh, if they can do it, I can do it. And I'm glad you brought up that point about that was then and they had to do that now. This is a different time. I'm glad you brought that up, because for a while I was just like, well, I just have to do this. And I realized myself, I was completely miserable. I was depressed. I was
run away from selves.
It is, yeah. I was depressed. I was drinking too much. I was just all sorts of things. I was just not taking care of myself, and I had to I remember there's this woman, because like I said, I started working with these children or these youth, and I saw just how proud they were in themselves, and here I am trying to boost them up, and I was like, how am I not being honest with myself? And I'm doing it, and so it really just had to, that's when I started transitioning, cutting out myself, and just being like, oh, this is how. This feels good, and people tell me all the time they notice such a difference in me, and I was just like, I just thought this was me, and so it's wild, yeah.
Right. Sorry everybody didn't get to answer. Just to piggyback off that just real quick, that just makes me think of the forgotten trans women, and that is a whole other conversation, but I just need to name that, and the violence that is occurring in this world, in this nation, in our communities, and it is despicable. And it hurts, and I just have to name that, because it is necessary for people to know, especially in Dallas, because that was the most recent back to back.
Right.
And if you don't know, Google. It is a university. Do the work.
Do the work.
So yeah, again, thank everyone for this. This was awesome.